In the long and emotionally combustible history of the bold and the beautiful, there are revelations that disrupt relationships, and then there are revelations that rewrite identity itself. Bill Spencer's confession belongs firmly in the latter category. When Bill finally admits that he is Douglas's biological father, the truth does not land like a scandal, it detonates like an earthquake, shattering assumptions that everyone involved believed were unshakable. This is not merely a secret exposed, it is a foundational lie undone, and its consequences ripple outward, destabilizing every family structure built around Douglas's life. For Douglas Forrester, the revelation fractures his sense of self. Until this moment, Douglas understood his world in simple emotional terms. Love, safety, and belonging were anchored in the people who raised him and the stories he had been told about where he came from. Bill Spencer existed at the edges of that world as a powerful, intimidating figure, important, but distant. Learning that Bill is his biological father forces Douglas to reinterpret every memory, every interaction, and every moment of security he once took for granted. The shock is not loud. It is internal, quiet, and deeply destabilizing. Douglas does not immediately know what to feel, only that everything feels different now. For Hope Logan, the confession is a betrayal layered with fear. Hope has always believed that stability, honesty, and emotional transparency were the foundations of good parenting. Discovering that such a critical truth was kept from her, about her own child, undermines her confidence not only in Bill, but in the entire system of trust that surrounded Douglas's upbringing. Her first instinct is protective fury, followed closely by guilt. She wonders whether she failed Douglas by not sensing that something was missing, by not questioning the narrative more deeply. Hope's pain is compounded by the realization that this truth will inevitably pull Douglas into a battle he never asked to fight. Liam Spencer experiences the revelation as both a personal and existential shock. As Douglas's adoptive father, Liam has defined his role not by biology, but by presence, consistency, and unconditional care. Bill's confession threatens to destabilize that identity. Liam does not doubt his love for Douglas, but he fears that love may no longer be enough in a world where bloodlines suddenly carry legal and emotional weight. Complicating matters further is the fact that Bill is Liam's own father. The revelation forces Liam into an impossible emotional geometry: son, father, and rival all at once. The question he cannot silence is whether Douglas will begin to see Bill not just as a biological fact, but as a replacement. Ironically, it is Douglas himself who begins to build bridges that no one anticipated. Drawn by curiosity, confusion, and an unspoken need to understand where he comes from, Douglas starts spending more time with Bill, and with Liam alongside him. What begins as tentative interaction grows into something unexpectedly meaningful. Bill, stripped of his usual bravado, approaches Douglas with uncharacteristic humility. He does not demand recognition or affection, instead, he offers time, attention, and patience. Liam, watching this bond form, is torn between gratitude and fear. On one hand, he sees Douglas benefiting from honesty and expanded support. On the other, he senses the ground shifting beneath his feet. The emergence of this new dynamic ignites profound rage in Ridge Forrester. Ridge experiences Bill's confession not merely as a personal affront, but as an act of calculated aggression. To Ridge, Bill has always been the enemy, the man who thrives on destabilizing the Forrester family for his own gain. Learning that Bill is Douglas's biological father feels like the ultimate violation, a betrayal that strikes at the heart of Ridge's identity as a protector and patriarch. Ridge's fear is visceral. He believes he is about to lose Douglas to a man he considers morally corrupt and emotionally dangerous. That fear quickly transforms into resolve. Ridge does not hesitate, he declares war. He becomes determined to reclaim full custody of Douglas, convinced that removing the child from Bill's orbit is the only way to ensure his safety and emotional well-being. To Ridge, this is not about ego, it is about survival. He frames the battle as a moral imperative, one that justifies any legal or emotional weapon at his disposal. In doing so, Ridge hardens into a man driven more by fear than reason, unable, or unwilling, to recognize the collateral damage his crusade will cause. The custody battle becomes the crucible that tests Hope and Liam's marriage. Though united in their love for Douglas, they begin to diverge sharply in their vision of his future. Hope prioritizes emotional stability and honesty, believing that Douglas deserves access to his biological truth without being weaponized by adults locked in power struggles. Liam, haunted by his own fractured relationship with Bill, fears that allowing Bill greater influence will expose Douglas to manipulation and emotional volatility. Their disagreements escalate from private conversations to bitter confrontations, each accusing the other, implicitly or explicitly, of endangering the child they both adore. Caught at the center of this emotional storm is Brooke Logan. Brooke's position is agonizingly complex. Her loyalty to Ridge is deep and long-standing, rooted in shared history and mutual survival through countless battles. Yet her past with Bill, and her understanding of his capacity for growth, prevents her from viewing him as the irredeemable villain Ridge insists he is. Brooke finds herself standing at a crossroads, where every step forward feels like a betrayal of someone she loves. Supporting Ridge means endorsing a custody war that may traumatize Douglas. Acknowledging Bill's rights risks alienating the man she built her present with. As the legal battle intensifies, the Forrester and Spencer families fracture into hostile camps. Lawyers replace mediators. Court filings replace conversations. Long-standing alliances crumble under the weight of competing loyalties. Every holiday gathering becomes a minefield of resentment and accusation. The war over Douglas is no longer about what is best for the child, it is about control, legacy, and unresolved grudges decades in the making. Amid this chaos, Douglas becomes the most tragic figure of all. Forced into therapy sessions, interviews, and whispered adult conversations that stop abruptly when he enters the room, Douglas begins to internalize the conflict. He loves Liam. He cares deeply for Ridge. And he is drawn, confused but curious, by Bill, whose honesty about being his father feels strangely grounding in a world full of secrets. Douglas feels torn not because he wants to choose sides, but because everyone else insists he must. The emotional pressure becomes suffocating, robbing him of the innocence the adults claim they are fighting to protect. The tension reaches its peak when Douglas is asked, directly or indirectly, to express where he wants to live. The question itself is an act of violence, forcing a child to shoulder responsibility for adult conflict. Douglas's hesitation speaks volumes. He does not choose with certainty, he chooses with fear, knowing that any answer will hurt someone he loves. His struggle exposes the ultimate failure of the adults around him. In trying to win, they have forgotten how to listen. As Hope and Liam's marriage buckles under the strain, Brooke confronts Ridge with an uncomfortable truth, that his war may cost him the very family he is trying to protect. Ridge, blinded by fear of losing Douglas, refuses to yield. Bill, for his part, insists that biology is not a threat, but an opportunity, for honesty, for healing, for a future unburdened by lies. Liam stands between them, desperate to preserve a sense of normalcy that no longer exists. By the time the custody battle threatens to reach a legal verdict, the damage is already profound. Trust has been eroded. Relationships have been reshaped. Douglas has been forced to grow up too quickly. The revelation that Bill is his biological father has not simply added a new chapter to his life, it has rewritten the entire book. In classic The Bold and the Beautiful fashion, the story does not offer easy villains or clean resolutions. Bill's confession is both courageous and catastrophic. Ridge's fury is rooted in love, but expressed through control. Hope's compassion is sincere but strained by fear. Liam's devotion is unwavering yet haunted by doubt. Brooke's indecision reflects the impossibility of moral clarity in a world built on shared history and competing truths. As tensions threaten to destroy the fragile happiness Hope and Liam have built, one truth becomes painfully clear: the greatest danger to Douglas is not who his father is, but how far the adults in his life are willing to go to claim him. And unless they find a way to put his emotional well-being above their own need to win, the cost of this revelation will be far greater than anyone imagined, breaking not just families, but the very bonds they claim to cherish most. The next 2 weeks on The Bold and the Beautiful are not merely about plot twists or holiday spectacle. They mark a subtle but decisive shift in the emotional and ideological center of the show. What unfolds from December 22nd through the end of the year is a convergence of ambition, legacy, insecurity, and reinvention, threads that have always defined this series, now pulled tighter than ever. Every storyline intersects around one central question: who gets to define the future when the past refuses to stay quiet? At the heart of this moment stands Thomas Forrester, returning not just as a designer, but as a man desperate to reframe his narrative. Thomas's insistence on explaining his vision is not about sketches or silhouettes alone. It is about reclaiming authority over how others perceive his growth. He wants his place back at Hope for the future, not because the job validates his talent has never truly been in question, but because losing that position symbolized something far more personal. It represented mistrust. It represented the idea that no matter how hard he worked to change, his past could still outweigh his present. The complication, of course, is Deke Sharp. Deke's presence in the role Thomas wants back is not an act of malice or manipulation. It is the result of opportunity meeting effort. For Deke, this job was not a stepping stone. It was a dream realized, even if only temporarily. He poured his identity into the chance to prove himself at Forrester Creations, believing, perhaps naively, that merit alone could protect him. The fact that his position was always trial status only heightens the fragility of his success. He knows he is replaceable. He feels it in every meeting, every glance that reminds him he does not carry the Forrester name. Steffy Forrester Finnegan stands at the crossroads of this conflict, torn between fairness and necessity. Steffy does not deny Deke's talent. She respects it. But respect does not always dictate strategy. From her perspective, the brand needs stability, history, and proven creative chemistry, and that means Thomas and Zende Forrester Dominguez. Steffy's choice is pragmatic, but pragmatism can feel cruel when it dismisses aspiration. Her decision reinforces an unspoken hierarchy. Some people are born into second chances, while others must fight endlessly for their first. When Thomas finally sits down with Hope Logan Spencer to explain his vision, the tension is palpable. Thomas speaks in the language of collaboration and growth, emphasizing balance, creativity, and respect. Yet Hope does not hear only words, she hears echoes. She remembers obsession disguised as devotion, intensity masquerading as inspiration. Her skepticism is not unkind, but it is firm. Hope fears that Thomas's vision may still be entangled with emotional dependency, that his passion for the work might again blur into fixation on her. The conversation becomes less about fashion and more about trust, and that is where Thomas struggles most. He wants to be believed without being interrogated, forgiven without being tested. Hope, however, knows that belief without boundaries is how old wounds reopen. While this creative conflict simmers, another revolution is unfolding across town, one that may prove even more destabilizing to the Forrester empire. Katie Logan Spencer is on the brink of launching her own fashion house, a move that signals not just competition, but a philosophical challenge to the status quo. Katie's storyline is not driven by vengeance, it is driven by clarity. After being sidelined at Forrester Creations, she refuses to remain defined by rejection. Supported fiercely by Bill Spencer, Katie embraces the opportunity to lead rather than assist, to decide rather than defer. The question of her company's name becomes a lightning rod for controversy. When Brooke Logan Forrester asks about it, her curiosity is layered with concern. Names carry legacy in this world. They declare allegiance. They provoke rivalry. Katie's hesitation at first suggests uncertainty, but the delay only amplifies anticipation. When she finally reveals the name the following week, the reaction from Brooke and Ridge Forrester is immediate and loaded. Their expressions in the preview say everything: shock, confusion, and perhaps the dawning realization that they underestimated Katie's resolve. Katie's announcement does more than introduce a new brand, it redraws the power map of the show. Forrester Creations has long existed as the unquestioned center of the fashion universe. Now, it faces a rival not born of Spectra-style chaos, but of competence and capital. Katie's brand threatens not through scandal, but through legitimacy. And that is precisely what makes it dangerous. This shift ripples outward, touching even those who believe they stand on the margins. Deke's encounter with Remy Price arrives at a moment of deep vulnerability. Losing his position at Forrester Creations feels like the collapse of his future. Remy, understanding what that job meant to Deke, offers help not as charity, but as solidarity. Their reunion carries emotional weight, two people bonded by shared struggle, confronting the possibility that dreams do not always die, but sometimes migrate. The idea that Katie's new fashion house might recruit Deke is not just plausible, it feels inevitable. Yet that possibility complicates Remy's role. If Deke moves forward, where does that leave the bond they are trying to rebuild? Parallel to these professional upheavals, deeply personal dynamics continue to evolve. Deacon Sharp remains committed to therapy with Taylor Hayes, and their growing closeness is as unsettling as it is tender. These sessions are not framed as romance, but intimacy often grows where vulnerability is nurtured. Deacon finds clarity in Taylor's presence, a sense of order that contrasts sharply with his chaotic past. Yet this bond leaves Sheila Carter Sharp adrift. Sheila senses a shift she cannot explain, her confusion slowly hardening into insecurity. The danger lies not in what Sheila knows, but in what she imagines, and the show's history makes clear that imagined threats can become very real. At the beach house, another quiet storm brews. Will Spencer invites Dylan to stay the night, a gesture that signals trust and emotional openness. Electra Forrester is initially surprised, her hesitation revealing unresolved uncertainty. Yet she agrees, choosing curiosity over fear. Her decision to get to know Dylan better feels generous on the surface, but beneath it lies tension, a sense that proximity may reveal truths she is not ready to face. As Christmas approaches, these individual storylines converge in shared spaces filled with lights, music, and ritual. Families gather. Gifts are exchanged. The mistletoe hangs heavy with symbolism. The promised kiss beneath it is not just romantic, it is revelatory. In this show, kisses are rarely innocent. They expose desire, allegiance, and sometimes betrayal. Against the backdrop of holiday warmth, unresolved conflicts sharpen rather than soften, creating a striking contrast between celebration and unease. The week of December 29th extends this tension into the new year, suggesting that resolutions will not arrive neatly with the calendar change. Some characters may ring in the year together, but togetherness does not guarantee harmony. The possibility that Deke will be hired by Katie's fashion house feels like both opportunity and provocation. If Katie begins recruiting top talent from Forrester Creations, the rivalry escalates from symbolic to tangible. Designers do not just carry skill, they carry loyalty, secrets, and influence. Every defection becomes a statement. Katie's need for designers underscores the broader theme of this arc. Reinvention requires people, not just money or vision. If she succeeds in attracting established talent, it will validate her leadership and expose Forrester Creations' vulnerability. Ridge and Brooke may soon find themselves defending not just their brand, but their decisions, and the relationships those decisions strained. Taken together, these 2 weeks represent a hinge point for the bold and the beautiful. Thomas's vision challenges the audience to decide whether redemption is possible without erasure of the past. Katie's announcement asks whether legacy deserves loyalty when respect is absent. Deke's journey tests the idea that talent alone can overcome hierarchy. And the quiet, intimate choices made under mistletoe, or by the ocean hint at consequences far larger than a single kiss or invitation. As the year closes, the show does not promise comfort. It promises confrontation, between old power and new ambition, between trust and doubt, between the safety of tradition and the risk of change. In true bold and the beautiful fashion, the future is not something that happens to these characters. It is something they are about to fight for.